In Chapter 37 of Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, it's 2 weeks later, and Mrs. Jennings brings some strange news to Elinor. Thinking that Fanny was fond of Lucy, Anne revealed the secret of Lucy and Edward's engagement. Fanny fell into violent hysterics and screamed at Lucy, who fainted while Anne cried. Fanny then threw them out, although John begged her to at least let them pack first. Mrs. Jennings thinks Edward will be angry at this treatment of his fiancée. Elinor realizes that the time has come to tell Marianne what she knows. Marianne weeps at the news, forcing Elinor to comfort her when in fact it's Elinor herself who needs comfort. To Marianne, Edward seems to be a second Willoughby. Marianne can't believe that Elinor has carried this painful secret for months and was very unhappy, all the while caring for Marianne during Willoughby's betrayal. Marianne is amazed at Elinor's vigilance and self-command, and horrified at how she might have selfishly hurt her sister. The next day, John visits Elinor, Marianne, and Mrs. Jennings, and tells them that Mrs. Ferrars demanded that Edward break off the engagement and tried to bribe him to marry wealthy Miss Morton. She warned that if he persisted in his engagement to Lucy, she would disinherit him. Nevertheless, Edward has chosen to honor his promise to Lucy. Thus, Edward, with £2,000, is now too poor to marry, and his younger brother, Robert, will inherit the family fortune. In Chapter 38 of Sense and Sensibility, Elinor rejoices in Edward's honorable choice. The next Sunday, Elinor and Mrs. Jennings go to Kensington Gardens, where Anne greets them and shares the latest news with Elinor. After the engagement was made known, Edward stayed away for 3 days, which saddened Lucy. When Edward finally arrived on the same Sunday, he offered to let Lucy out of the engagement to find a wealthier husband. She did not desert him, so they agreed to wait to marry until he could take orders and find a position in the church. Elinor is shocked and upset to learn that Anne gathered this news not in conversation with Lucy, but by eavesdropping on Lucy and Edward. Lucy writes Elinor a letter, claiming that she offered to end their engagement, but Edward would not desert her as per his promise. In Chapter 39 of Sense and Sensibility, Elinor agrees she and Marianne will visit the Palmers' estate with Mrs. Jennings before going home. Mrs. Jennings overhears bits of conversation between Colonel Brandon and Elinor that lead her to believe that Brandon is proposing to Elinor. But in reality, moved by the situation and recalling his own separation from Eliza, Brandon's offering Edward a position as clergyman at Delaford. It has a low annual salary of £200, and the parsonage will need repair. But it's a generous gift, and Elinor is grateful for Brandon's kindness. She's also a bit despondent because she thinks Edward and Lucy's marriage prospects are brighter than an income of £200.